देख रहे हैं सुदर्शन न्यूज।
For graciously accepting our invitation and also advising us to hold this meeting. Welcome again, sir, and thanks. This meeting is divided into two broad parts. The inaugural session where the Deputy CM will address us and also administer the Anti-Narcotics pledge to all personnel of Nagaland Police after his address to us. And the business end, which will be in-house discussions. After assuming charge as DGP Nagaland in January, we prioritized the war on drugs as our number one priority, and in my discussions with the Honorable Chief Minister and the Deputy CM, right from January onwards, they agreed that this has to be a focus area. We realized the need for a multi-pronged approach to combat this menace and decided that we need to educate our police personnel too about the ill effects of the menace and the seriousness of the problem. Rehab of the consumers is an important aspect which the police department will also take up with other sister government departments in due course. When I mentioned this to the Deputy Chief Minister, the Deputy CM readily agreed to administer the pledge, the anti-narcotics pledge to all Nagaland police personnel. Ignorance of law is no excuse, but we thought that we need to at least make an effort, especially with our junior ranks and other officers. This is where we start today. Nagaland Police would perhaps be the first police force in the country to administer this anti-narcotics pledge to all its personnel down the line. Thank you, sir, for being a part of this effort. This meeting is being held after a largely peaceful election recently, and I would like to extend my personal sense of appreciation and gratitude to all officers and personnel of Nagaland Police for the effort. Each one of you has had to shoulder additional responsibility during the period and put in extra effort, including extra work hours and sleepless nights. We at the PHQ pushed you hard through constant supervision, monitoring, guidance, and sometimes gully. And you loved it and lived up to the expectation that we had. If we were harsh, it was a professional requirement, not any personal agenda. We would endeavor to continue to maintain it that way, professional. A short break was well deserved, but we should be back to the higher professional standards that we set for ourselves during the elections. Remember, we learned that we can all do it by maintaining better professional standards than we normally do. At the PHQ, we are seized of various organizational and professional matters. We have constituted numerous committees during the last 2 months to improve and revitalize our functioning. While inputs from field units are essential, we would request and urge the Deputy Chief Minister and the government to help us in whatever way we are possible. There are various issues which we are confronting or which we are likely to encounter in the forthcoming days. The G20 summit, the ULB elections, the possible ENPO arrangement and a peace accord, removal of AFSPA from additional police stations in the state, additional police station jurisdiction in the state, the drug menace, and dealing with crimes like extortion and interfactional disturbances, especially for something like we have witnessed in the past week or so, which disturb law and order in the state. We need to be prepared for all this. Prevention is better than cure, and since we are at the forefront of most law and order issues in the state, the Nagaland Police faces the brunt of the law and order problems. We need to proactively identify and narrow down upon potential flashpoints like intertribal or factional or village disputes, or even agitation by various NGOs or CSOs or ad hoc organizations, and seek solutions to such flashpoints or problems and advise the government in advance to help tackle these problems. These are areas of priority. These should be areas of priorities because, as I said, prevention is better than cure. Our society has some peculiar features where the village and tribal level units are very important. So are some of the CSOs and NGOs. We would like to devise mechanisms to actively associate with each stakeholder by creating formal linkages so that policing can be synergized and an effective police-public partnership can be developed. The provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code and the rules for administration of justice and police in Nagaland provide ample legal basis for such coordination. While we would like to urge the public and CSOs to help us, but we would also urge them not to take law into their own hands and act within the confines of law. All measure of partnership is welcome, but remember we have to act within the confines of law. We will try to work out mechanisms for such cooperation and even organize training courses or interactions with the public for developing such mechanisms. Since most districts and police stations do not have too much active police work, we would like to start training programs for the public in law enforcement and police at various levels, starting from the villages to the schools. There is a need to establish linkages between traditional customary methods and modern policing. We need to integrate these. Crimes or matters which fall within the ambit of the jurisdiction of villages, the village councils and their competence need to be documented and linked with the policing for effectively securing the lives and properties of people in Nagaland. We need to devise effective mechanisms for this. Our investigation skills and component needs an uplift qualitatively and logistically. We are working on a plan to project our requirements to the government. Policing in modern times is not merely brawn, but brains and the law. We need to shift from the danda to the kanun. Some of the hurdles we face are budgetary constraints and logistic and forensic constraints. We should realize, and the public too, that what is evidence in the eyes of an ordinary man is not so for the courts, where higher standards of evidence are required. Therefore, we need to focus on scientific investigation. For this, we need resources. Alternate dispute resolution mechanisms like negotiations and mediation exist in all societies, including Nagaland. However, when alternate dispute resolution starts overtaking the formal ones, there is a time to think. Are we doing our job well? Does the public trust us as persons or as an institution? Does the public trust our professionalism or fairness? Does the public have faith in us and they can come to us in times of distress? Free and open registration of crimes and cases is important to revive the public trust in policing. Enhanced crime figures should not be seen as ineffectiveness in maintaining law and order or breakdown of law and order, but as proof of the public trust in the police department and the police force. We at PHQ would want to see it that way in future. We should encourage registration of crimes as proof of public faith in us and the government. With an oppositionless government in Nagaland, sir, we would like to request yourself to help us in advocating this with the government so that increased crime figures are not seen as breakdown of law and order, but as a proof of trust in the police department. With greater registration would come greater trust and also better resources for the police department. Just to give an example, the resources that we would need for 1,000 FIRs registered in a year would be only a small proportion of what the resources we would get if the number of crimes registered goes up to 3,000 in a year. So registration of more cases should not be seen negatively. It is a positive sign of trust in us. The Honorable Supreme Court of India and the Guwahati High Court have been pushing for separation of investigation and law and order functions. So we have had internal discussions within the department and we are working out on a plan for separation of investigation of law and order from separation of investigation and law and order. This mechanism will be put in place in the coming months, and we all have to reorient ourselves to this. In the end, let me assure you, sir, that Nagaland Police would leave no stones unturned towards maintaining a better and peaceful and fear-free environment in the state, which would help us in Nagaland to usher in a new era of development and investment in Nagaland. Under your guidance, we will try to uplift our standards of work and policing and do whatever is possible within our capacities.
आप देख रहे हैं सुदर्शन न्यूज।